Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for coming, or indeed for tuning in to these daily updates. I want to introduce, I'm sure you know, Jenny Harris, Deputy Chief Medical Officer for England, and you know Sir Patrick Vallance, Chief Scientific Advisor. I want to tell you where we've got to in our national fight back against the coronavirus. Today, the Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies met to discuss the latest evidence on the spread of the virus and the effects of the measures we have already taken to slow its spread. And Patrick is going to update us in a second about that. I want to repeat that everyone must follow the advice to protect themselves and their families, but also, more importantly, to protect the wider public. So stay at home for 7 days if you think you have the symptoms. Remember the two key symptoms: a high temperature, a continuous new cough. Whole household to stay at home for 14 days if one member of that household thinks she has the symptoms. Avoid all unnecessary gatherings, pubs, clubs, bars, restaurants, theatres, and so on. Work from home if you can. Wash your hands. And we've already announced in the last few days we will massively scale up our testing capacity in the weeks ahead so that we hit 25,000 tests a day. Huge public information campaign is being rolled out so people get all the information we need to protect ourselves and others. We're asking retired healthcare professionals to come back and help us cope, help the NHS to cope with this unprecedented challenge. And we will continue, as we have from the beginning, to do the right thing at the right time and to follow the best scientific advice. And we come today to the key issue of schools, where we've been consistently advised that there is an important trade-off. And so far, the judgment of our advisors has been that closing schools is actually of limited value in slowing the spread of the epidemic. And that's partly because, counterintuitively, schools are actually very safe environments, and in this disease, in this epidemic, children and young people are much less vulnerable. And hitherto, the advice has been that we should keep schools open if possible in order to reduce the pressure on the NHS and on all other public services. But I think you'll agree that I've always been very clear that this is a balanced judgment and one that we've kept under constant review. So looking at the curve of the disease and looking at where we are now, we think now that we must apply downward pressure, further downward pressure on that upward curve by closing the schools. So I can announce today, and Gavin Williamson is making a statement now in the House of Commons, that after schools shut their gates from Friday afternoon, they will remain closed for most pupils, for the vast majority of pupils, until further notice. And I'll explain what I mean by the vast majority of pupils. The objective is to slow the spread of the virus, and as I say, we judge that this is the right moment to do that. But of course, as I've always said, we also need to keep the NHS going and to treat the rising number of cases. So we need health workers who are also parents to continue to go to work. And we need other critical workers with children to keep doing their jobs too, from police officers who are keeping us safe to the supermarket delivery drivers, social care workers who look after the elderly and who are so vital. We'll be setting out more details shortly about whom we mean in these groups. So we therefore need schools to make provision for the children of these key workers who would otherwise be forced to stay home. And they will also need to look after the most vulnerable children. This will mean that there will, of course, be far fewer children in the schools, and that will help us to slow the spread of the disease. And these measures are crucial to make sure that as I say, the critical parts of the economy keep functioning and public services keep functioning. So we're simultaneously asking nurseries and private schools to do the same, and we're providing financial support where it's needed. We're making provisions to supply meals and vouchers for children eligible for free school meals. And where some schools are already doing this, I want to make it clear that we will reimburse the cost. And of course, this does mean that exams will not take place as planned in May and June, though we will make sure that pupils get the qualifications they need and deserve for their academic career. Now, I know that these steps will not be easy for parents or for teachers, and for many parents this will be frustrating, and it will make it harder for them to go out to work. And of course, that's one of the reasons that we haven't wanted to go ahead. And that's why we're now working on further measures to ensure that we support not just businesses, but also individuals and their families to keep our economy going, as Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, outlined yesterday. I also need to remind parents, as we've already advised, that children should not be left with older grandparents or older relatives who may be particularly vulnerable, fall into some of the vulnerable groups. And I know that's going to be difficult too. And I want to thank families for their sacrifice at this difficult time. And I want to thank the whole country for the efforts that people are making to comply with these measures. I particularly want to thank teachers, head teachers, all the support staff who keep schools going, who are going to be able to make these exceptional arrangements work for the benefit of us all. By looking after the children of key workers, they will be a critical part of our fight back against coronavirus. And as I've said, we will take the right steps at the right time, guided by the science. We believe that the steps we've already taken, together with those I'm announcing today, are already slowing the spread of the disease, but we will not hesitate to go further and faster in the days and weeks ahead. And we will do whatever it takes so that we beat it together. And I'm now going to pass, I think, to Patrick to give an update from Sage.